lead us in invocation.
Yes, let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together again to discuss the business that you've placed before this council. We ask your blessings upon each and every council member and their families and all the families that are represented here. We ask that you continue to watch over our men and women who serve our country, those men and women in uniform, especially those who are serving in harm's way. Bless those who have served and those who are still serving, and always remember the families of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And as we go through our agenda this evening, we thank you for the veteran who is going to come before us. We thank you for protecting him as he serves. We also thank you for the honoree that we're going to recognize this afternoon, and we thank his family. Thank you for his family. Just thank you for all the blessings. We do acknowledge that all good and perfect gifts come from you and you alone, and we stand on the spirit of his father and remember him in this precious moment. These and all blessings we thank and ask in your name. Amen.
Tonight we will be led in our Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Darrell Witherspoon, who is a U.S. Army veteran that served our country supporting the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. He is a member and trustee of Jehovah Missionary Baptist Church, and he's also a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He is married to Denise Witherspoon. They have 2 sons and 1 grandson. He currently lives in County Council District Number 1, which is the Honorable Carlton Washington's district. Thank you for your service, sir. You're welcome. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, sir.
In the absence of, well, here he is. Come on.
Fashionably.
Mr. Witherspoon, thank you for being with us here today. Appreciate your service, although I'm not sure about the cave side. Good to see you. Good. Congratulations. Thank you.
Have them, Mr. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda, Ms. Brandon?
There are no changes.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and properly second that we approve our agenda for tonight's meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the approval of the agenda. Approval of our minutes.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and properly seconded that we approve the minutes of our regular meeting for Tuesday, June the 28th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Land use matters, RZ 2206, Ms. Rubin.
Good evening, Helen Rubin for planning staff. RZ 2206 is a request to rezone 1651 North Kings Highway from R15 to agricultural conservation. This is a 6-acre tract located on the east side of North Kings Highway between Scales Road and Meeting House Road. This property is about 130 feet wide, but it's 1/3 of a mile long. So it's a really oddly shaped 6 acres. The reason that this applicant is requesting to rezone the property is because they intend to place a manufactured home on the property, and then use the property for their own personal homesteading activities. The R15 zoning district does not permit manufactured housing. It only allows single-family site-built homes. This is a heavily wooded lot. There's actually about 124-foot change in grade sloping to the west over that 3rd mile, so it's about a 6.4% grade. So it's also heavily wooded, as are the properties around it. Back in 2006, 2007, before the bubble burst in the housing market, the previous owners rezoned this tract and the other pieces that you see in yellow to residential 15 with the intent of doing a single family development on the property. But at that time, they did not control those central pieces. This got completed right around the time the housing market started to cool in 2007, and since then, those previous owners have abandoned that project, and it's now individually owned lots that are up for future development. When we look at rezoning requests, we look at the comprehensive plan designation. In this particular instance, the property is influenced by the rural development planning area, which is supportive of agricultural zoning. This is the part of the county where we don't have sewer and water infrastructure to support higher densities, so the request to rezone this property to agricultural conservation is in alignment with the 2040 plan. Planning Commission does recommend approval of this request. As I said, this request is supported by the 2040 plan. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman. So thank you, Ms. Rubin, and thank you for chatting with me today. Let me make sure I'm on here. The property is on 261, and of course 261, a large portion of it is in District 1, but I wanted to make it clear that this particular property is not in District 1. It is actually in the councilman from Dazel's district, District 2. So I wanted to make that distinction because I'm sure I will get some phone calls about it, and I wanted to make it clear that it is not in District 1. It is in District 2, but I'm sure the chairman will share with you later that there will be a public meeting. For those of you who may have some concern, you'll have the opportunity to address that at that time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other?
Move approval first reading. Second.
Been moved and properly that we approve first reading for ordinance 22-977. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. First reading for 2206 is approved. Ordinance number 22-977. Mr. Brian.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, you have on your agenda 3rd reading on this ordinance and a public hearing prior to 3rd reading. I'm going to invite the county council to defer 3rd reading after the public hearing because there's still not a resolution as to the location of this easement that due progress would like to have to provide power to the FTC cell tower, which is in the back of the Westmark Sumter County Library branch office. Originally, Duke suggested that they put the line directly through the vacant part of the lot, which is to the west of the building, but that would have frustrated any attempt to build on that part of the lot in the future, because as you know, you can't build on top of a power line. So there's been some discussion about moving that line all the way to the property line that we have with Prisma Health there on the corner. There's some trees there that are going to frustrate that. So then we talked about putting it just to the east of the driveway on the west side of the property. And that's still in discussion, but I also asked them to look at bringing the power from the Ashley Collins Drive cul-de-sac, which is directly south of the property. So they would be coming across the rear property line with their easement. And so I've asked them to look at that, and asked them again to look at that. And when they look at that, they can tell me if that's a possibility. I think that would be preferable from our perspective if that's possible. So until that's resolved, I'm going to ask the county council to defer. But we can still have the public hearing in case other people have comments about the location of these.
Okay. Prior to a motion on the 3rd reading, we'll have a public hearing. And I now declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak to council concerning ordinance 22-977, please proceed to the podium. State your name for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Second. It's been moved and properly seconded that we defer third reading on ordinance 22-977. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We have deferred third reading on ordinance 22-977. Tonight, council would like to recognize the Honorable James C. Campbell. Those of us who know him well, we call him Jamie. For being named the 2022 South Carolina Clerk of Court of the Year by the South Carolina Clerks of Court and Register of Deeds Association. And I think I've heard that he's only the fifth one to be named with this honor. So, Mr. Campbell, if you would please come forward. The plaque reads, South Carolina Association of Clerks of Court and Register of Deeds, Clerk of Court of the Year, James C. Campbell, Sumter County. South Carolina Association of Clerks of Court and Register of Deeds 2022. We'd like to present you with a small coat.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all.
Short agenda tonight. Well, at this time, we come now to committee reports. We do not have any committee meetings today. So now we will hear from any council members on meetings, trainings, and other conferences.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I want to thank the clerk and Landing for preparing a fantastic proclamation for Ms. Beatrice Sumter. I spent time yesterday at the Joshua to Sunday at Joshua Baptist Church, presenting the proclamation before the church, and then subsequent to that, the sheriff and I, Chief Deputy Gardner, and the pastor, Reverend Dennis, visited Miss Sumter, and she is just as pretty as she can be. She is 107 years old, and we had the best time visiting with her. Ms. Blandon, thank you. You did an excellent job. We spent about 30 minutes with her. It was really enlightening, and it just makes a difference when we have seniors that are still around. Their presence just makes a difference in our families and in our lives. So I want to thank council for being supportive of that, and thank you, Ms. Blandon, for the wonderful proclamation that you prepared. Secondly, several council members and several folks in the community have asked me if I have secured a meeting date with the superintendent, and I want to report to council that I have not received a date from the superintendent for us to meet, and I am waiting to hear from him. Of course, we have much to talk about in terms of education in Sumter County, particularly in rural areas, and several of my colleagues up here have that same concern. But I just wanted to report that I've not heard from the superintendent, but when I do, I will certainly report that back to council and inform you on any subsequent meetings. And I think Ms. McGaney will also now be joining me in that meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm completed my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Anyone else? Moving on, monthly reports, Ms. Blandon.
The Public Works monthly report is in your packet.
County Administrator's report.
No report, sir.
Come now to that portion of the meeting where the public comment and address council. Citizens desiring to speak are limited to no more than 3-minute comments to be made to the chairman of Sumter County Council. I now declare public comment portion open. Anyone wishing to address council, please proceed to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening, my name is Patricia Lynn Fowler.
So what was that last name?
Fowler,
Can you spell it for me?
Fowler.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler.
Never
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the residents of Beach Creek Drive and for myself. I purchased home on, I will read this off because it's easier for me to do so. I purchased a home on 6th April in 2022. It is a new build located at 5605 Beach Creek Drive. I moved in on April 30th and was excited to be moving into my new home. On 13 June, my neighbor, Mr. Brown, had his land surveyed. I spoke with Mr. Brown, and he stated that he attempted numerous times to speak with both the builder and the broker who purchased the property, purchased the land, about the concern they were building on his property. Mr. Brown said that he was threatened with lawyers and decided to back off and let them build the house. He confided in me that if one part of that house would have been built on his property, he would have made them tear it down. I concurred. If it's on his property, it's the right thing to do. They did clear part of his property to put this house in, and they didn't attain a current survey. They used one dated for 1985. I contacted Building and Planning, spoke with Mr. Phillips, who gave me the proper setbacks, which should be 35 front, 50 back, 12 on each side. Later, he said that I was good to go because I had spoken to Mr. Brown. He had his land survey completed and I was not on his property. Mr. Phillips said that I was good to go as long as I wasn't on his property. I explained to him that that was not the case and that the building inspector should have caught that the setbacks are all wrong. He said that he would call me back but I had to call him back several days later. He then stated that someone came out and they said it was correct. I told him that was a lie. I don't know the correct term, but I think it's called eminent domain. I'm probably incorrect, but I think it is. After a period of time, the setbacks have to be met, and in doing so, it would take me part of Mr. Brown's property to establish the complete correct setbacks. There is a reason for building codes, and if you have them, you should enforce them in every situation. I too had a survey done. It was conducted on 9 July. I do not have the complete results. I should have those tomorrow morning. I was told that all of the setbacks were incorrect to include the front. I will have that in writing tomorrow. Literally, if I step out the corner of my patio, I'm on Mr. Brown's property. I would also like to address the council. I know my time is probably up. I would like to address the council with a few concerns about building new residential homes on contaminated land. It is a slap in the face to my neighbors that a new home was built when others cannot afford the full value of their new home if they were to decide to sell it. Allowing a new home to be built when the person is selling the land when the person selling the land basically has to give it away because their land is considered contaminated. Why should I lost my spot. basically had to give it away because it was being considered contaminated. He could not get the full value of the said property. Allowing the person purchasing the property to build a new home, and he knew that the land was contaminated, why should he get the full value of that home? It was not disclosed to me at any point that this land is considered contaminated. I would not have purchased it, period. When I signed the papers at closing, my property immediately became unsellable and the value will most likely never increase. Let's just say I agreed to purchase the property with the knowledge of the contamination. It would have not been at full price. What did you do for the residents whose homes and land became devalued because of the contamination? These good residents, most of whom could not afford to purchase a new home, especially with their home values being at what they are with the contamination on them. They didn't deserve what happened to them, but it seems they have to suffer the consequences. Accidents happen, I get that. But there should have been more responsibility taken for the residents. I am told that the water is safe and that our water comes from High Hills Rural Water. If this is true, why are they still in violation of not turning in the certification form for 2020? You can tell me over and over again that it's safe to live here, but my conclusions are not the same. I have heard from several people in the area about suspicious illnesses. Coincidence? Maybe. None of these homes, to my knowledge, have ever had a well or have one at this point. What am I supposed to believe? What should they believe? How many soil and water tests have been conducted on each residential property? I guess I have to believe that the government never lies. In conclusion, I'm asking that you no longer allow new homes to be built on contaminated land. That you consider offering more to the residents that are affected by this contamination. And that you enforce your building code so that people like me don't have to spend their last dime on lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Anyone else wishing to address council?
Good evening, council. George Bates, I live out in Wedgefield, off 261 on Cougar Way. I'm continuing to see houses that were burned out, just dilapidated, moved out. Property is overgrown. The house has got broken doors, broken windows. Mobile homes off of 261 by the post office and on Cougar Way, about the third or fourth lot in, heading west on the left side. Isn't there anything that can be done with these properties to get them cleaned up? Because they're an eyesore, and they're also, feral cats. I haven't seen it yet, but it's suspected that people are doing drugs in these burned out houses. So it would be nice if we can have something done out there off of 261 in Westfield for these dilapidated houses that are out there. They're not residential if they're burned out or destroyed the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Anyone else wishing to address council? Seeing none, public comment section is closed.
For adjournment.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?